Do you see my screen? Okay.
You are good to go.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so before I dive into the presentation, I just want to briefly mention that all the views and opinions that are expressed during this presentation are of my own and they do not represent my employer. So with that, let's dive in. Balancing AI autonomy with human oversight. And this particular topic is supporting the SDG 17, which is supporting the global partnerships and under the technology related goals. And okay, so what exactly is a consequential decision? A consequential decision is something where the it talks about the provision or like admission or denial of an individual into one of these sectors. Like it could be into the getting them an education an opportunity or an employment opportunity, or it could be like get a decision on a financial or a lending service, like whether they would get the mortgage or no. Or it could be related to healthcare service or housing or a legal service or an essential government service. And it is very important when AI or algorithmic decision making is employed in making a consequential decision that we ensure there is also a human oversight in the process, um, in order to adhere to the responsible AI principles and to embrace the responsible AI principles. With that, I would like to talk about the OECD AI principles in simple words. OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the OECD AI principles have been around since 2019. There are 4 foundational pillars for OECD AI principles, which are human-centered and fair, trusted and transparent, open and accountable, and safe and secure. And in the following slides, I will talk about how the development team can ensure their AI models or algorithms are, and I will share some resources on how they can map their algorithmic practices to all of these foundational pillars of the OECD AI principles. The first foundational pillar is human-centered and fair. So before I dive into the content on the slide, let's briefly talk about what is fairness. But before we even try to understand what is fairness in terms of a algorithmic model, I would like to introduce the concept of protected attributes. So the certain attributes such as age, race, gender, sexual identity are deemed as protected by the law, and it is we can never discriminate against any individual based on the protected attributes. So with that, the simplest form of a definition of fairness for an AI model is called as anti-classification. And what it essentially means is if 2 individuals, X and Y, have exactly the same unprotected attributes, then the output from the algorithmic model should be the same, irrespective of what their protected attributes are. And in order to ensure that their AI and the algorithmic models are human-centered and fair, one of the good or best practices is to include a representative data set when training the AI model to mitigate the potential for unfair bias and unintended consequences. And some of the resources that the development teams could use is the IBM AI Fairness 360 Toolkit and the Google What If Toolkit. The next foundational pillar of the OECD AI principles is trusted and transparent. In order to increase the trust and transparency in the AI model, it is all about bringing the model closer to explainability. Sometimes the AI models seem like black box, wherein we do not really understand why a certain outcome or a decision or an output was made by the model based on certain parameters of input. And by bringing or coming closer to making the model more explainable, it increases the trust in the model. And by making the data flows of what is going into the model and what is coming out of the model, it helps with the visibility in and bringing the visibility into the data management. It helps understand the outcomes of the model. And some resources and tools that the development teams can rely on are the SHAP and the LIME repositories. And there is also a wonderful AI explainability 360-degree toolkit, which has a really good checklist on how to ensure that the AI models are trusted and transparent. And the third foundational pillar is the openness and accountability. So, one thing is even before the development team dives into the whole process of building an AI model or training an algorithm, one of the best practices is to ensure uh, and identify who will be responsible in the organization if things do not go as planned. So, in terms of if there is a crisis or if there is an outcome, an unpredictable outcome from the AI model, then it is really important to understand who assumes this risk and who owns this risk in the organization, even before the team is looking into the development process of the AI model. And one of the very good resources, for doing this is a RISI matrix, which is the responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed matrix to understand the roles and responsibilities of the individuals that are involved in the process of throughout the training, development, and deployment of the AI lifecycle. And having these practices to champion accountability, traceability, and stronger governance also kind of feeds into building more trust and transparency on the model. And the fourth and the final foundational pillar is safe and secure. So the AI systems should be robust, secure, and safe throughout their entire life cycle and adhering to the principles of privacy by design and security by design. For example, one example that comes to my mind is when training or when considering the training data sets for training an AI model, it is one of the good practices is to kind of audit for an account and understand have we received consent on these data sets, or is this data scraped from over the internet, and is that how we are training the model, or has this data been purchased by third parties or through data brokers, and is that how we are training the model, or is there a case for synthetic data generation, and how. So getting really clear on the practices involved in the AI development lifecycle, supporting the security by design and privacy by design principles. And also, AI actors should monitor the AI system and the life cycle on a continuous basis to address the risks related to AI systems. So, what this means is if somebody has reported that an AI model is hallucinating or it is giving, maybe you are trying to put in a prompt and suddenly it gives all of the personal data that is related to you. And so there should be like a quick and fast acting resolution in taking and considering those feedbacks and maintaining the continuous monitoring throughout the AI lifecycle. With that, that brings us to the last slide of my presentation. Thank you so much. I will stop sharing my screen. Okay.
Wonderful. We do have 5 minutes left. So does anybody have a question? If you do, feel free to raise your hand or post it in chat. I don't see a hand being raised, so I am going to ask you a question because I think this is a very important topic, but one in particular, especially for this year, given all the technical advancements and it being somewhat of the Wild West, what are you hoping to see in 2025? And what are some of your own personal goals and ambitions to make this one of your best years yet?
Yes. So I'm hoping to see that more and more organizations are going to embrace the responsible AI practices. And even though the word like kind of sounds heavy and bulky and burdensome on what responsible AI practices even mean, it just means the exact same thing, which I had covered in my presentation. It is like, how do we ensure that our models are fair and they do not discriminate? And how do we ensure that our the practices are helping in making the model more explainable and transparent? And how do we ensure that there is continuous monitoring on the algorithmic model training and deployment? And also the other thing that I am really hoping for in 2025 is when it comes to regulation, there is, especially in the US, there is not like a mandated or a federal sort of a guidelines or guardrails on how the or where it should be going when it comes to ensuring the safety and security of the algorithmic model and training. Whereas on the EU side, there is the EU AI Act that had been passed. So there is some clarity on which direction the things are going. So I'm really hoping that in this year, there will be more push and progress made in terms of like some sort of a federal guidelines at least, or guardrails would be laid down, which would help all the organizations to like come onto the same path or trail.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, Swati. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, John, and thanks to Chelsea and Chris as well. Thank you.